Thursday, Yud Nissen, Tafshin Ayin Daled. We are in Teiras Menachem Sefer Mamar Kimei Tzeischo Aleph Tafshin Yud Beis. In the Mamar of Achron Shal Pesach Tafshin Yud Beis, Mamar Kimei Tzeischo Mitzrayim, on page Reish Samach Zayin, at the paragraph beginning with the words Val Derech Zeh, in the middle of chapter 5, Ois Hei. The Rebbe, earlier, in chapter 3, gave two explanations why.
Maybe he's going to address it?
Yes. Why a nes hamalubish beteva, a miracle that's clothed in nature, has a qualitative advantage over and above miracles that are beyond nature, that defy nature. Explanation number one is because a miracle is something which comes from a level which is beyond worlds, inherently beyond worlds. A miracle that's clothed in nature, it means that the revelation of godliness, which is inherently beyond the world, comes into the world itself. It's clothed in nature. And how does that happen? How could something which is beyond the world come into the world in a revealed way? Actually, within the framework of the world, it's because it comes from a place which is beyond limitation and beyond limitlessness. The world is inherently limited. A miracle is inherently unlimited. How could you bring one into the other when the miracle is clothed in nature? It's because it comes from a place which is beyond both. The second explanation that Rebbe gave was that in miracles that defy nature, the revelation of godliness breaks the world. Whereas the miracle that clothes itself in nature, it demonstrates that Hashem rules on the world to such an extent that He can cause nature to behave as He desires, in an unusual way, in a way that is not within the nature of the world to behave in the usual scheme of things. These were the two explanations that Rebbe gave in the qualitative advantage in miracles that are clothed in nature over and above miracles that defy nature, that break nature. In chapter 5, the first section of chapter 5, in the first section of Ois Hei, the Rebbe explains that the difference between these two explanations is one relates to the mode of the miracle, the way in which the miracle happens, and the other relates to the miracle itself. The first explanation relates to what? To the way the miracle happens. That a miracle that is clothed within nature happens in a way that the unlimited element of godliness comes into the framework of the limited nature of the world. And the second relates to the miracle itself, that the miracle itself is in such a way that it rules over nature to the extent that it causes nature to behave as Hashem wants, rather than the framework of nature itself. Now in this section, the Rebbe goes and explains miracles itself. So the Rebbe explains like this. Although the Rebbe just explained that there is a qualitative advantage in miracles that clothe themselves in nature, nevertheless, within miracles that defy nature, we also find a uniqueness over and above miracles that clothe themselves in nature. That's where we're up to. This is also true concerning miracles that are beyond nature, that defy nature. That also the quality of these miracles, again in these two components, both in what? In the way in which the miracle happens, and also concerning the miracle itself. Shahanisim and Hem Begilui. These miracles are miracles that are revealed. V'gam dezeh she'ein sof habligvul meishel v'shel tal hateva misgal yeseh beprat echad behanisim shel hamayla ma'ateva. In a certain sense, in miracles that defy nature, the fact that Hashem rules over nature is more revealed in one aspect than miracles that are clothed in nature. Why? Because when we talk about miracles that are clothed in nature, what happens then? Natural phenomena remains in its existence. It's not broken. So therefore, in that sense, it's merely that what? In a miracle that clothes of nature, it demonstrates that the way in which nature behaves in accordance with Hashem's will. But nature remains intact. But when we talk about miracles that defy nature, that are higher than nature, where the nature of the world is nullified, is broken, this demonstrates that the rulership of Hashem's infinite light is on nature itself. And to such an extent that what? It even penetrates the actual essential existence of nature, to the extent that it breaks it. So there is a qualitative advantage in miracles that clothe themselves in nature, both in the way the miracle happens and in the miracle itself. And there's also a qualitative advantage in miracles that defy nature, both in the way the miracle happens and also in the miracle itself. What is the difference between these two types of miracles? Or rather, where does this difference between these two types of miracles stem from? Says the Rebbe, what's the difference between these two miracles and their source? In miracles that are clothed in nature, what happens? What's the difference between a miracle that is clothed in nature and a miracle that defies nature? A miracle that's clothed in nature gives some room for nature. That's why what? That's why when it comes in contact with nature, it doesn't break it. It causes it to work in accordance with its rules rather than its own rules. Why? That means that it's a level of godliness which gives room for nature to exist. Or the root of nature, which is what? The Keich HaGvul, the limited force of Hashem. Whereas a miracle that breaks nature is a level of godliness, an infinite level of godliness, which gives no room for nature at all. Therefore, when it comes into contact with nature, how does it affect it? It breaks it. We could say that the difference between these two types of miracles in the root is this. When we talk about miracles that are clothed in nature, it's the revelation of Hashem's infinite, unlimited light as it gives room and is associated with limitation. Therefore, when this divine light of Hashem becomes revealed, or relative to this divine light of Hashem, the existence of nature is there. Nature has some room relative to this revelation of godliness. It's just that relative to this unlimited, infinite light of Hashem, the limitation of nature behaves in accordance with Hashem's infinite light. But when we talk about miracles that are beyond nature, in this instance, relative to the revelation of godliness, which becomes manifest when? It becomes manifest where? In miracles that are beyond nature, we're talking about a level of godliness which is totally beyond the idea of limitation. Therefore, what happens? Therefore, when this revelation of godliness comes, it makes its presence known, what happens? Misbatul hateva mimitziusay, nature becomes totally nullified from its existence. It breaks nature. This is similar to what is explained in another place in Chassidus concerning desire and intellect. These are two faculties of the human being. Desire and intellect are a parable for the transcendent light of Hashem, which is the root of miracles, and the immanent, internal light of Hashem, which is the source of nature. The fact that desire is drawn down into intellect and affects intellect, that there should be a reason, an intellectual, rational reason for a person's desire, and this is only so far as the a ray, as it were, of the desire is concerned. But the essence of the desire is not drawn down into rationality. There is no reason for desire. Seichel is the normal conduct of the person. The person should behave in a rational way. Then you have Ratzon, desire. Now Ratzon has two ways of affecting the individual, so far as Seichel is concerned. There's a Ma'ameh Chazal, Le'elam Yilmed Adam B'makim Sheli B'chafetz. A person should always learn where he desires. So Ratzon has a way of affecting one's intellect. But then sometimes there's a desire which is beyond Ratzon. I want. And Seichel just falls away. It breaks Seichel. Even though the person's rationale will tell him, don't do it, or behave in a different way, when it comes to a desire which is totally beyond rationality, it leaves no room for Seichel at all. So the normal nature would be, the parable would be Seichel. Right? Nes hamalubish beteva would be what? Ratzon, as it affects Seichel, as it motivates Seichel. Or rather, Ratzon that motivates Seichel would be what? The Tmidius in Teva, if you remember. The unlimited element within nature. That's Ratzon, like then you have a Ratzon which is also beyond rationality, but a person has to give some rationality to his behavior, so he's able to rationalize his Ratzon. That would be like Nisim Hamalabashim B'Teva. But then you have Ratzon which is completely beyond Seichel. The Etzem Ratzon, the essence of the Ratzon, of the desire. That level of Ratzon, it's like when you speak to a child, you try to explain to him that he should behave in a certain way, and he says, yes, but I want. That's not an answer it doesn't answer the Seichel, it defies the Seichel. So those are the stages. So far as the Ha'ora of Ratzon is concerned, that gives room for Seichel, in one of the modes that we just explained. So far as the essence of the Ratzon is concerned, that can override Seichel and break Seichel altogether. And that is the difference between Nisim Am Labashim B'Teva and Nisim Shelamaylam and Ateva. Right? But according to this, it comes out that Nisim that are clothed in nature are a more deficient or a lower level of godliness, because it gives room for the Gvul, for the limited level of godliness, for the behavior of nature. And the Rebbe in the beginning of the Maimon explained, if you remember, that miracles that are clothed in nature are what? Rooted in a place that is higher than miracles that defy nature, right? So how does that coincide? How do these two go work together? That's what the Rebbe is going to explain in the next section. Continue Mitzvah tomorrow.